Hello and welcome to another video. So today I'm bringing you my June reading wrap up, and it was a really good month for me. I read 21 books. I took part in technically 2 readathons. So for the entire month I took part in Whatever-a-thon, which was hosted by Maddie over at Book Browsing Blog, and then for the 21st to the 26th, I took part in Book Snooker, which was hosted by Helen over at Helen's Bookhaven, and I had a really fun time. My Whatever-a-thon goal was to read 12 books, because my average on a month where it's just a normal month and I don't slump or anything is about 11-12 books. But I did pick 15 books, one for each of the 15 prompts. And then I read 21. I mean, I will say 6 of them were like tiny little novellas. So, you know, it's not as impressive as it sounds, but I'm still taking it as an achievement because 21 is amazing no matter how big or small the books are. So yeah, it was a really fun month and I'm looking forward to taking it a bit more chill in July. A little bit more chill, so but we'll see how that goes. But in total for the month of June I read a whopping 6,385 pages. Like, that is amazing. Just a pat on the back for me, pat on the back. But without further ado, I am going to just get stuck in. I'm not going to go in depth on all of them because there's a lot and this is going to be a long video otherwise, but yeah. So the first one I read was Percy Jackson and the Singer of Apollo by Rick Riordan. This was a 3-star for me. The only reason it was such a low rating, like I really enjoyed it, but there wasn't, it's a tiny little novella. Like novellas don't tend to get a very high rating anyway because they're not full length novels, so it is really hard to rate things. But things like characters, obviously I can still rate high because I love the characters. But yeah, there was a plot, but like there wasn't much intrigue and stuff. So yeah, I did really enjoy this though, and it was nice just to have something little just to return to the Percy Jackson world. I'm hoping to start the Heroes of Olympus series in the next couple of months, and I am very excited to get back into that. Next up we have The Strange Worlds Travel Agency, The Edge of the Ocean by L.D. Lipinski. This was a 4-star. This is a sequel and I adored the first book and I loved this one even more. Oh, it was so good. Like if you are into adventurous middle grades, then read this series. This is the second book, like I said. I think it might be a trilogy, but I cannot wait for book 3. It was so good. I absolutely adore the characters in this, and there was LGBTQ plus rep in this, which if you've read it you'll know I love it. I love Flick, and there is a new character in this one called Avery who is Jonathan's cousin, and I love Avery. Avery's quickly become like a favourite character, and I just loved the adventure in this, and honestly the intrigue was incredible. I was on the edge of my seat not the edge of the ocean, edge of my seat, for a massive chunk of this. The constant like, how are they gonna get out of this, how are they gonna like solve this problem and find a solution, and it was just amazing. And I could just talk about how much I love this book for ages, forever. So yeah, highly recommend this series. It's amazing. Next up we have Scythe by Neil Shusterman, and I am possibly holding a new favourite series. I absolutely love this. This was a 5-star and this was my favourite book of June. And we're going to ignore her. And that like literally come about but I read this in like the first week of June and I instantly knew I was getting a new favourite. So yeah, I'm absolutely obsessed with the idea behind this, on like death and disease has been eradicated on Earth, and to stop overpopulation, scythes are trained and they glean people, and that is the only way you can die in this world. And you cannot kill a scythe. Scythes can only be gleaned themselves if they choose to. So obviously there is mentions of suicide in this, because that's essentially what scythes have to do. They have to essentially commit suicide when they no longer want to continue being a scythe. So I would look up the triggers for this book, but I absolutely loved this. It's been a long time coming, me getting back into dystopians and sci-fi and everything, and I'm really enjoying my time being back with these types of books. And you might have seen on my channel or my social media that the day before this goes up, another post is going up with a little announcement. So I can talk about it here because, and you can get the full details if you go over to that video that was posted the day before this one, so Tuesday. But Ashley over at Movie and Books Girl and Rachel over at Rattle the Stars and myself will be hosting a Scythealong for the next 3 months, so July, August and September. I have obviously already read Scythe, so I will now not need to read this one in preparation for that, but we will be doing a live show for each of the books at probably the beginning of the following month after we've all read it. So I am super excited to take part in that. I am going to be flicking back through this and making some notes so that I don't lose track, but I'm really excited. So yeah, make sure you check that out. Next up we have Me, My Dad and the End of the Rainbow by Benjamin Dean. This was a 4-star for me. I buddy read this with Helen and it was such a fun time buddy reading it with her. I really enjoyed this book. I loved seeing from the perspective of a child. Obviously the book is about Archie's parents who have split up because Archie's dad has a secret. It's no secret to us what the secret is, but just for spoiler's sake I will not say, because it doesn't actually say, it doesn't specifically say on the back, but it does basically hint very much as to what the secret is, and you can probably guess from the name and the cover and everything. But I really enjoyed the friendship group between Archie and his 2 friends. It's so lovely seeing friendships with kids, because as an adult, I do not talk to anyone that I knew in school. I just don't. I have grown apart from them, but it's nice looking back on the memories of when I was friends with them, because, you know, we had a lot of good times. And it's really nice to see the friendship between these 3. They are on the back. They're so cute. I love them. And also Archie's rocky relationship with his dad, because one thing I will say, Archie's parents are really selfish. Like, I get that they have a lot going on with the divorce and everything, but I feel like they don't take Archie into consideration. Like, right at the very beginning of the book, they have this massive argument at Archie's parents' evening, and that's so unfair on Archie. And yeah, there was a lot of things about Archie's parents I did not like, but I liked seeing how Archie and his dad overcome things. And yeah, it was just really lovely and I really enjoyed reading it, and it was just so much fun near the end. And yeah, next up we have Ghost Town by Rachel Caine, which is the 9th book in the Morganville series. Of course, I've been rereading this and buddy reading it with my mum and my sister. I love this one. This was a 4-star as well, and I'm actually quite shocked because I thought this one was going to be a 5-star, and I completely forgot about something that happens right at the very end of this book, and it literally breaks me completely. I was sobbing, but I love this series, and I did actually end up looking up at which ones it is that a certain thing happens, because I know they're going to be a lower rating because I wasn't a fan of those, but then it redeems itself for the end of the series, so it's fine. But really excited to continue my reread, and I'm just having a really good time with this. Love Shane so much. Shane and Claire are like, I love them. I love them. Also this one, I really feel for Merlin. And I really love Oliver. I know you're not supposed to like Oliver. He is not a nice person, but I don't care. I like Oliver. Next up we have Blood Witch by Susan Dennard. And obviously I read this for Witchlands Along. I'm very excited for the live show for this because this is my favourite book in the Witchlands series to date. I do have an ebook of Witch Shadow, which I still have not got to. But I'll be reading that at some point in July. But this is my favourite book of the series so far. This is Aidan's book and still forever my favourite character. But so much happens in this book and I absolutely adore it. I do find, now this is my second time reading this, and I do find Sapphi's moments, like the chapters that have Sapphi in it, I am not as invested in as Iseult, Merrick and of course Aidan. I don't know what it is about Sapphi, it's just she's never been my favourite character. Like, she's always been my least favourite of the four. I don't dislike her, I find I'm not as interested in her chapters, and I just can't wait to get back to the other characters. And I think that's partly why this doesn't get a 5-star, because Sapphi's chapters just bring it down for me. But I still absolutely love it. It's still one of my favourite series ever, and I've been enjoying my reread so much, and I'm so excited for the next book. Next up we have Aryan Lost by Alistair Chisholm, and this is a middle grade sci-fi, and I don't think I've ever read a middle grade sci-fi before, but this definitely will not be the last middle grade sci-fi. It will also not be the last Alistair Chisholm book I read. This book was incredible. This got a 4-star from me, and it was just so good. There was so much going on. There were so many twists and turns. You didn't know who to trust at one point, and it was just so brilliantly done. Especially scenes as these are kids stuck on a spaceship where all the adults are in like asleep and cannot be woken, and the kids have to do this on their own. And it's just brilliant. They come across like aliens and like essentially space pirates, and it's just brilliant. So much action, so much to like take in, and I absolutely adored this. It's definitely one I would recommend over and over again. Next up we have The Creakers by Tom Fletcher. I have finally read this book. Oh, I've had this since it came out. I have it signed and personalised from the year I went Yauk, and Tom and G were there, and I finally read it, and I'm so glad I did, because this book is amazing. Tom Fletcher just has this way of writing. I love his Christmasaurus series. I'm yet to read Danger Gang, but his Christmasaurus series, and then now this as well, is just incredible. It's so funny. Even as adults, it's brilliant. My mum also read this month, and she also loved it. He just has this way of writing children's stories, and one of the main things I love about this is that he talks to the main character, but he also talks to the reader, and you get little pages in between chapters. Let me try and find one where he's talking to us as the reader, and there's one in particular which absolutely gets me, which is this, and this isn't a spoiler, but I'm gonna read this bit to you because it absolutely cracks me up. How are you getting on? Sorry I've not spoken to you for a while. I've been busy writing this story, and I guess you'd be busy reading it. It's all getting a bit topsy-turvy, isn't it? All this upside-down backward stuff. In fact, if you turn this book upside down and read this page backwards, it tells a nice story about fluffy kittens. Only joking, just wanted to see if you'd turn the book upside down. Just little things like that. He also has a character in this called Piers Snorgan, who is the presenter of Wakey Wakey Whiffington. And it's very clear he doesn't like Piers Morgan, and I'm here for it because who does? But this was, I can't remember if I said this was a 4-star. Absolutely love this. Love Tom's writing, and he's 100% an auto-buy author for me. Like, I originally only started buying his books because he's Tom from McFly, but after reading them, now he's an auto-buy author because his books are amazing. But yeah, I definitely recommend this. It's such a fun read. Next up we have Starfield 2, Willow Moss and the Forgotten Tale by Dominique Valenti. This is the second book in the Starfield series. I really enjoyed the first book. This got a 3-star. I did really enjoy this. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed I love the characters so much, and I liked the additional new characters that we got to meet in this, as well as seeing old characters. However, the reason this only got 3-star was I wasn't invested enough in the plot. I feel like the plot of this one was not as exciting as the plot of the first book, and it just let me down a little bit. Like I said, I really enjoyed it. I would 100% recommend this series as a whole so far. I do need to get my hands on book 3. But yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of the lack of excitement, but I did still really enjoy it, so I'd still recommend it. And yeah, the characters are my favourite thing about this. I absolutely love the characters so much, and I'm hoping that the new characters we meet in this will appear in the third book. Fingers crossed. Next up we have The Iron Crown by L.L. McRae. This was actually, the ebook version of this was sent to me by the author to read and review, and I got about 100-ish pages into it and decided to just buy myself a physical copy, and then I continued reading it in physical form instead of ebook form, and I absolutely loved this book. This was a 4-star and I absolutely loved this so much. This is the first book in the Dragon Spirit series, and the Dragon Spirits themselves were just incredible. And also my favourite thing, I loved the characters in this. I'm going to try that again. I loved the characters in this, but one of my favourite things about this was the descriptions. The descriptions were so beautifully done, and a lot of the time people can find long descriptions a bit boring, and usually I am one of those people. I like basic descriptions, enough for me to picture the world and the people, but this did it so well. I loved the descriptions. I was lost in this book and I just really enjoyed it. And the way it ended was like, I need book 2. Also floppy. It's a floppy floppy paperback. But yeah, I need book 2 and I can't wait for book 2. I would quite like to have book 2 now, please. Please. But yeah, really enjoyed this, highly recommend it. And yeah, 4-star from me. Absolutely loved the characters and the world building and just the intrigue as well. And there was moments where I was just like, and the plot, and just, I could go on for days. It was amazing. Read it. The next book I read, it was Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. So I've seen a lot of people talking about this, and if you know me, you know I love Loki. And if you have seen the first Thor film, you will know at one point Loki is blue because he's a frost giant. And I saw this was on Kindle Unlimited, and I've been umming and ahhing about getting the 3-month free trial from Kindle Unlimited to give it a go. And I saw this was on Kindle Unlimited and decided, yeah, this is it. I'm going to get Kindle Unlimited for this. And I read it in less than 12 hours. That was with me sleeping as well. I read like half of it in the evening, went to sleep for a few hours, woke up and read the rest before I started work. I could not put this down. It is only 188 pages. However, it is book 1 of a 22 book series, and you can bet I am reading the rest of the series. This was so good. When I first decided to read this, I thought it would go one of 2 ways. I would either absolutely hate it and give it like 2 stars, like 1-2 stars, or I would absolutely love it and it would get 5 stars. It did go the way of absolutely loving it. However, it did only come out as 4 stars, not 5 on core pile. But this was incredible. I would say check the triggers. Some of the characters were a bit whiny, didn't like it, and I am someone who absolutely hates miscommunication. However, in this book, it is completely understandable for there to be miscommunication, because Georgie is a human and Vectel is an alien. They don't speak the same language, so it is very hard for them to communicate. But I feel like they figure it out very well how to communicate, if you know what I mean. But it was very good. The smut was amazing in this. So yeah, it's very smutty. Very smutty. But I think the smut was amazing in this. I really loved the story as well. Like, the plot was actually pretty good. And I'm really excited to read the rest of the books in the series. I think it's going to be a really good series to just have as like something on the side to read in between bigger books, because they're all pretty small books, I believe. But there's also a Christmas one, so I'm very excited. So next up we have Twisted Fates by Danielle Rollins. This is the second book in the Dark Stars trilogy, and it's been a while since I read the first book, Stolen Time, so I did think I would struggle a little bit. However, within the first few chapters I had remembered everything that had happened in Stolen Time, so I had no issues getting through this book. And oh my god, this was incredible. The first book ended on a massive cliffhanger, as has the second book. This did get 4 stars, and this just, oh, I buddy read this book with my sister and my friend B, and we all really enjoyed this. I continued to love the characters. I loved seeing... this is going to be hard to say without spoilers, so if editing's a bit weird, it's because I'm trying to edit out spoilers for this. But there is a revelation at the end of the first book, and then we have to then learn things in this one about the character with the revelation. It's really hard to explain, but it was really well done. This book deals with time travel, so in parts it's a little bit confusing, but not enough to damage my enjoyment of the book. I thought it was done really well, and I really enjoyed how the characters figure out things, because it's also very like science based as well. There's a lot of talk about like, there's like things like earthquakes, and there's talk of like a massive tsunami that wiped out Seattle a few years before the first book, and is mentioned in this book too. And it was just overall such an entertaining read, and I really enjoyed it. Next up we have Get a Life Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert, and this is one that I wasn't expecting to love. I have heard so many people talking about this book, so a while back I put it on my wish list, and Kyra got it for me off my wish list for my birthday. And I'm not someone who reads contemporary romance, but I wanted to give this a go because there's so much hype about it, and I'm really, really glad I did, because I enjoyed this so much. The mental health rep in this was really well done, especially around like being in a toxic relationship previously. I thought that was really well done. I cannot speak for the disability rep, but I have heard Own Voices reviewers say that the rep for the disability was done really well in this as well. But obviously, please go check out Own Voices reviews for that. But I really love this. I'm a sucker for enemies to lovers, and that's essentially what this is. And the sexual tension between the two characters was, I didn't feel like it was rushed. It was funny. I loved the humour in this. It's my sort of humour. And there's a cute cat in it called Smudge as well, which is just a bonus. But yeah, I just really loved the development of their relationship, and I just thought it was really well done. And then obviously there's the moment where you think everything's going wrong, and then we get the ending, and yeah, it was just amazing. And I'm really excited to continue the series and get the book and read the books about Chloe's sisters. Can't remember if I mentioned this was a 4-star. Next up, I read Wondersmith by Jessica Townsend. This is the second book in the Trials of Morrigan I can never say this. The Trials of Morrigan Crow series. And I really enjoyed this. This was a 4-star. One of the things I really love about this book is that it introduces dragons. Like, I did not know this series had dragons in it, but apparently it does. I really enjoyed this. The characters are just amazing, and I really loved the, like, because obviously this is a middle grade, and middle grades tend to have messages for kids, and I really liked the messages that this gave us, and like the characters, like loyalties and friendships, and I really enjoyed this. It was such a good book, and as always it had me laughing. And yeah, there was bits where I was like on the edge of my seat. I was like, how are they going to get out of this? What are they going to do? How are they going to do this? How are they going to do that? Constantly thinking about this book while I was not reading it. In between, like when I was taking breaks from reading it, I was constantly thinking about the book and what was going to happen. And I absolutely love that when that happens. And yeah, I devoured this in a day. It was amazing, and I absolutely loved it. And yeah, 4 stars. Next up, we have Nick and Charlie by Alice Oseman. This is a little novella based around Solitaire and Heartstopper. Obviously, we know Heartstopper follows Nick and Charlie from the beginning of their relationship. This takes place, I think, shortly after the novel Solitaire. I think it's 1.5. I think the book is 1.5, so obviously Solitaire's 1. I really enjoyed this. No matter what, I always love seeing Nick and Charlie's relationship. They're just goals. I love them. They're adorable. And this one made me cry. Like, why does Alice feel the need to do this? I was really worried for a second. This one is basically Nick is preparing to go to university, and obviously Charlie is a little bit younger than Nick, so he is not preparing to go to university, which means they're gonna have to figure out long distance, and it just hurts. And she really had me for a moment. I was really worried, but it was such a beautiful book, and I just love everything Alice writes. This one actually was a 5-star, and if you look at the core pile ratings, this did actually score higher than Scythe. However, I don't like putting novellas as my favourite book of the month because it's tiny, and I feel like I'm a bit biased when I'm rating these because I go off of the story that I know from like the Heartstopper series as well as from this, so I feel like it's cheating a little bit if I put it as a favourite. So that's why Scythe was my favourite, because this and Scythe were my only 5 stars in June. So yeah, I absolutely loved this. Next up, I went on a bit of a novella day to try and get through some little novellas for Book Snooker. So next up was Everdark by Abby Elphinstone. Now I do have I don't think you're going to be able to see it. It's somewhere here. I do have the actual full-length book of Everdark, but it's the exact same story. It's just that one is set out in a way that's dyslexia friendly. So I read this one. Also, I needed a green book, and the other one's pink and orange. This is green. So I used this book, and this is a prequel set before the events of Rumblestar and Jungle Drop and that. And this is actually mentioned, this story, like what happens in this is mentioned in, I believe it's Rumblestar, but we only get a basic thing of like how the thing ended, what happened. Whereas this is actually from the point of view of the person, and it's seeing how things went and how that it's really hard to say this without spoiling anything, but yeah, it was really good. This was a 4-star, really enjoyed it. Abby Elphinstone has just such beautiful writing, and I absolutely adore the Unmapped Chronicles series, so this was a really nice addition to that. Next up, we have How the Marquis Got His Coat Back by Neil Gaiman. Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman is one of my all-time favourite books. I absolutely adore it, and the Marquis is a brilliant character, and this was just a little short story. It's basically, in Neverwhere, you find out about a time he lost his coat, and this is how he got it back, and it's just a really quick, fun story. This was only 3 stars, purely because it's too short to give it any sort of proper rating. It's really hard to rate because it's literally 58 pages. But I did my best and it came out as a 3-star, but I absolutely loved it and it was a nice little addition. Next up we have Brain Freeze by Tom Fletcher. This is another World Book Day book, and this is just an 86-page book and it is the most adorable thing ever. The main character, Izzy, her grandpa used to be an ice cream man, and a year before this is set, he sadly passes away, and ice cream is what she remembers him by. And then one night there's no ice cream in the freezer and she can't sleep without having an ice cream to remember her grandpa by, and she accidentally finds out that the ice cream van is a time machine. And it's just so whimsical, so funny, so cute. It had me tearing up at one part and it is just so wholesome. And like I've said before, Tom Fletcher just has such this way of writing kid stories and it's just amazing, and I absolutely loved this. And yeah, 4-star for this. Next up we have Ring the Bell by Josie Jaffrey. This is a very short story. This is 28 pages. This is a story about like class and like poverty and things, and it's really hard hitting and it's really like it got me. But it was so beautifully written, and honestly if there was a full-length novel which like follows on from this, I would 100% read this. I think it would be incredible. But even just these 28 pages are just, they get across a message so well in those 28 pages, and I absolutely adored this. And yeah, this got 4 stars as well. Next up we have Queenslayer by Sebastian de Castell. The 5th book in the Spellslinger series. I only have one more book and I have finished the main series. So excited. This got a 4-star. This was incredible. I loved Rikus even more in this. Rikus just absolutely cracks me up. He is genuinely the best character you're ever gonna meet. Ever. I really enjoyed there's a twist at the end which can't say what it is obviously, but it was just wasn't expecting it. But I really loved seeing how Kellen's got to this point where he's so used to being treated like crap that he just doesn't care anymore, and he's like, yeah, okay, cool, yeah, cool, okay. And you can tell how hard it is for him to trust people, and he has to learn to try and trust the Queen, and the Queen who's like 11 as well. But yeah, it was a really good addition to the series and I really enjoyed it. And I love the characters, I love the humour, and honestly listening along with the audiobook for this is just such an experience because Joe Jameson is the best audiobook narrator you're probably ever going to hear. He has different accents and everything, and he's just brilliant. So yeah, this was a 4-star. And then the final book, we're there. The final book I read in June was Solitaire by Alice Oseman. This is where it all began. This is Tori's story. Tori's story. So this is Tori, who is Charlie's sister. I think she's in the same year as Nick, I think. But this is basically her book. It's from her point of view. We do see Nick and Charlie in this, obviously, brother and sister. But this very much deals with Tori and her mental health and just everything about Tori. And there was twists in this. There was a mystery with the whole like Solitaire blog and everything, and I really enjoyed that. It kept me on the edge of my seat because I had no idea who Solitaire was. I did spend a massive chunk of the book thinking it was one person. Turned out to not be that person, and I was like, okay, well, I have no idea. But it was a really good read. I thought the representation for depression, just mental health in general, was really good. And yeah, this was only a 3-star. There were things about it that I was just part of the reason was I did start listening to the audiobook of this and then very quickly realized there was a lot of things in that made me feel really uncomfortable, and so I thought to try and get through it quicker I would read along. And I discovered very quickly that this physical edition was actually it was reprinted with editorial changes, so Alice actually went back through and changed a few bits, like wording and words she used, and I enjoyed it a lot more reading it physically, because there was none of those things that had made me feel uncomfortable when listening to the audiobook. So yeah, I did end up really enjoying this, and yes, 3-star. So that was everything I read in June. I'm really sorry for how long this is going to be, and if you're still watching now, like, thank you, because I did sort of waffle on a little bit with some of these. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment down below how many books you read in June and if you took part in any readathons, and I will see you next time. Bye.